This was the most despairing plane crash in history. The captain went to the restroom for just a second, yet found himself locked out of the cockpit. He could only watch as the plane crashed. The crash then resulted in 150 deaths, 600 body fragments at the scene. Aerial footage is even more gruesome. On March 24, 2015, Germanwings Flight 9525 took off from Barcelona Airport in Spain, heading to Dusseldorf, Germany. Following the flight procedures, the captain repeated the air traffic controller's clearance. At 9:30 a.m., the plane entered cruise mode. Everything seemed normal. However, just a few minutes later, ground control realized something was wrong. Without receiving any instructions, the flight altitude dropped over 600 meters and continued to descend. Commanders immediately contacted the captain to ask why, but received no response. From 9:35 to 9:39, ground control made several attempts to contact the crew using different frequencies, but still received no reply. At 9:40, the plane disappeared from the radar. Ground control immediately issued a distress alert, announcing that the plane were in great danger. At 9:41, Germanwings Flight 9525 tragically crashed into the Alps. It was a desolate area with no roads and harsh conditions. Rescue teams had to use helicopters. According to the aerial footage, the crash site was horrific, with body fragments scattered everywhere. After about a week of searching, the two black boxes were finally found. When the technicians repaired them, the truth of the crash was finally revealed. After analyzing the cockpit voice recorder, they discovered that the plane had been hijacked, but it wasn't done by terrorists. Now let's go back to the cockpit a few minutes before the crash to see what actually happened. At 9:30 a.m., the plane was in normal cruising mode. Then the co-pilot urged the captain to go to the restroom. The captain didn't think much of it and left. Then the co-pilot quickly lowered the flight altitude. The captain realized something was wrong. He immediately returned and tried to enter the cockpit. But no matter how he pounded on the door, there was no response from inside. Then he realized the plane had been hijacked by the co-pilot. Since the 9/11 incident, engineers upgraded the cockpit to protect the crew. If you want to enter, there are only two ways. One, through an intercom request. Two, entering an emergency random password. But either way, the highest control authority is always inside the cockpit. If the pilot locks the door from inside, even a bomb cannot forcibly open it. In the last few minutes, the captain could only plead desperately. The passengers seemed to know their fate as well. The sense of powerlessness and despair left everyone speechless. In the end, all 144 passengers and 4 crew members perished. Many people might wonder why the co-pilot did this. During the investigation of Andreas, German police found he was only 27 years old, had loved flying since childhood, and joined a flight academy right after graduation. His room was covered with posters of Airbus and Boeing, but he had been grounded due to severe depression. His pilot's license was only restored after doctors issued a full treatment report. But a few months later, when filling out the FAA documents, he concealed his depression and was exposed during a medical screening. He was supposed to go to jail, but he was strangely requalified to fly. This was a major oversight by the FAA. As his condition relapsed, his depression worsened, and he began taking heavy antidepressants. Yet he maintained a normal work and life routine. 4 days before the crash, he suddenly had suicidal thoughts. Before Flight 9525 took off, he researched a lot of information about the Airbus 320, understanding the cockpit door locking mechanism. Once the plane reached cruising altitude, he kept urging the captain to go to the restroom and began executing his terrible suicide plan. After the death of 149 innocent people, the UN swiftly implemented new regulations, requiring that during flight, regardless of any situation, at least 2 crew members must be present in the cockpit at all times to prevent similar acts.